Hello, everyone. I'm really excited today. We've got a guest speaker, Dr. Amoneeta. And the reason we brought Dr. Amoneeta to come and speak to us today is because we hear from our community a lot about, okay, great. So we've got mindfulness activities in our classroom, but how do we prove the science behind mindfulness? How do we prove that what we're doing with yoga mindfulness with our children really is a benefit and works, especially when we're talking to our parents and our administrators? Because we don't want to add one more thing to our curriculum, right? So it has to make sense. And I'm obsessed, especially as a former teacher myself, I'm obsessed with looking at how do we do these activities in the classroom so that it has a proof, it has a benefit. Also, it aligns itself with the educational standards, right? And so we can say everything that we're doing, there's a purpose, right? So Dr. Amoneeta here is you're a psychology professor, and you've done a lot of research in the area of mindfulness. So I'd love to start with just you telling us a little bit about your background, your work, kind of what's your passion in regards to mindfulness in the classroom.
Yeah, Giselle, thank you so much for inviting me into this prestigious talk here with your organization. I'm really impressed with everything that you do out there in promoting meditation, yoga, and mindfulness for children, which is obviously the huge goal that I have also, given our recent book on this topic. I really strongly believe that children can benefit from mindfulness, and the earlier we do that, the better. And so that's at least on this topic, that's one of my big passions is bringing mindfulness because of all the benefits, particularly, given my background as a counseling psychologist and a multicultural and positive psychologist on top of that. I think that it's crucial. It's a crucial skill that we can help children benefit, for the mental health aspects, the emotional regulation aspects. All of these things can really help, boost their individual happiness, and I think that can spread out and even improve society. So those are some of the things that I'm passionate about, and that I think are very much in line with your goals there also.
I love that.
For kids.
I love that. What pops to mind when you said that, right, is this obsession about working with young children, right? And so imagine if we had some of these tools when we were little too. So I think about the quote by Dalai Lama. What does he say? If every child by the age of 8 practiced meditation, it would transform the world, or some such, right? And so that always sits with me, right? Is thinking about, imagine if all children by 8 years old had access to yoga mindfulness, what difference that make? So I just want to start by grounding ourselves in the definition of mindfulness, right? Because there's a lot of misconceptions about maybe what mindfulness is. So we'll ground ourselves in the definition of the Jon Kabat-Zinn, which I call the grandfather of mindfulness. I'm not sure if I can say that, but that's how I look at him. And he's from Massachusetts, originally here where I am. And he defines mindfulness as paying attention in a particular way in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So I'd love to hear, I'll say that again, paying attention in a particular way in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So I'd love to hear from you about what research you have been up to in terms of mindfulness with children, and what have you found?
Really great question, and I couldn't agree more with, like you mentioned, the Dalai Lama statement and like that, and that's why we have a goal, and hopefully this book will help a little bit of getting mindfulness into every school, or access for every children, maybe homeschool children and those that may be studying online, and et cetera. Absolutely, I think it can transform our society like that. And so in terms of the research out there is so much. I personally don't engage in, or I'm not collecting officially empirical studies like that. However, my co-author did a study with students, and she's published that online, where it shows great results. And then what I do and did for the book is more of the secondary of looking at other people's studies and then kind of condensing that in
Right.
accessible ways, right? That's one of my goals also, is to bring psychology to the masses and make it accessible in ways that people can understand. And so, in our book, we cite over 50 empirical references that kind of support these aspects of how these can really help students with so many things, right? I already mentioned emotional regulation. It can improve focus, attention, helping more relaxation and calm. These are all studies out there that this is not me just making it up, but of course I can vouch for that also with my own work. Anecdotally, I've worked with many clients in therapy, students that I introduce mindfulness exercises and different techniques to. And then anecdotally, they tell me that they benefit from these different things. Again, not to mention that it's been shown to improve creativity, boosting self-esteem, all things that are important for children, right? Better social skills, self-awareness, memory, mood. I think I alluded earlier to mental health indices, right? Less depression, less anxiety. Basically helping on the mental health aspect, coping with what I like to call uncomfortable emotions, right? And have that improved overall emotional well-being. Some of the new research is coming out and saying that this ability to emotionally regulate is probably one of the greatest predictors of student success, right? So that their ability to kind of manage their behaviors, their thoughts, etc. And then lastly, very briefly, there's evidence that it benefits teachers, because the teachers are kind of vicariously learning and doing the mindfulness themselves. Not to mention all of the above that I mentioned for students, teachers, or parents, that makes it that much easier for them for classroom management, keeping their attention, keeping the students engaged, basically in the end making teachers' lives easier. So all of that, I think, shows really good evidence on why it would be beneficial for using this in the classrooms, etc.
Awesome. I love it. I just want to provide another perspective too to that, is that when I read that that stat about self-regulation is now indicator of potential success. So on a personal note, my daughter is has autism, and she has anxiety and ADHD. So she's a quirky little beautiful child. But she struggles with self-regulation, right? And so when I read that, my heart sinks. And as a parent, I feel like if they're not self-regulated, means that they won't be successful. And I also want to share with folks out there. I mean, we're teachers and pediatric therapists and parents who are in a community. We are dealing with, especially the last couple of years, right? We're dealing with the reality is a lot of our children don't have the skills yet about self-regulation. And so this is one pathway, but I also want to put it out there that because your children, our children are not necessarily successful with self-regulation yet, we're still planting the seed, right? We're still planting the seed, and every little bit counts, right? Every activity, every mindful moment, every yoga practice, everything counts. So I just want to put that out there, that it's not always positive, but every bit moves forward. And like you said, it makes a difference on the adult too. So if we're regulating, we're modeling as adults and parents and educators, that makes a difference.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And if we could kind of go back a little bit to your comments earlier about, wanting to show schools and educators why this might be important. Administrators want to only add things to curriculum, like you said, that make a difference. And so we know that this kind of social emotional kind of learning can benefit all of the above, right? The academic achievement, the engagement, all of those types of things. Absolutely. So I would encourage having those conversations with administrators and showing how overall it could work. And if they're maybe not into it, the intro to our book kind of backs up and shows all of this research that I was citing on those benefits. And even then, they may be hesitant because their school day is only so long, and they do need to focus on academics, and they have those types of goals. And so, what I might suggest is kind of prove by showing. A teacher could just go and start doing this. That they could just take a couple of these exercises and start doing it. And I think over time, that class that teacher is doing it in will improve in various ways. And so, other teachers might start to notice that, or they might ask, what are you doing with your classes that seems to be working? And they might mention that over a lunch hour or something. Another teacher might pick it up. So those are some of my ideas on how this might be able to integrate into a curriculum for folks.
Exactly. And I think too, we also write mindfulness resources for children. And some of the conversations I've had with our community is people don't even realize that they're already doing it, especially with sensory, for example. There's so many great sensory activities that trigger mindfulness, being in the present moment through your senses. And so even bringing some intentionality, think, oh, well, I'm already doing these activities, but if I'm intentional about how I'm bringing the idea of mindfulness, how do I be in the present moment, non-judgmentally, and help those children see how can I use my eyes, my ears, right, my touch to be in this moment, to be kind of in the zone, right? And so looking at the curriculum doesn't have to be totally transformed, does it? It can be these little snippets of ideas, just enhance what you're already doing. And chances are you're already doing a lot of mindfulness activities anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We agree with that. We mentioned that in the book also, that you might be doing these things, or it could be just something as little as 5 to 10 minutes a day.
Right, exactly. So tell us more about because you were talking about in the book, the empirically evidenced activities. So how are you, tell us some of those activities that you've got proof that they work through science.
Yeah. So, the book basically has about 40 exercises in it. And these are exercises mostly that have been done for years by mindfulness teachers over the years. We a lot of them we didn't create. There are a few of them that we created, or we one or the other of us have done based on other things. But they're almost all coming out of the literature, out of the studies that have been done on these. And again, not all of them have studies behind them, but there are studies on general mindfulness that support the benefits. And so, these have been done by other teachers, ourselves, and we see effective results. I think I mentioned that my co-author, Jonna York, did an empirical study on her work with students, and it really showed a lot of these benefits that I mentioned already. And then just again, my own work with my students is less scientific, but it's still these stories that they tell, and the observation that I make when I see a client come in struggling with emotion regulation or anger or any of these other aspects that they may be coming in, and then the transformation that I see when they're leaving therapy, or again, kind of my college students also sometimes just talking about improving sleep, right? I'm teaching a sleep psychology of sleep course now, and I really see an improvement on just teaching them some basic exercises, them going back and using these from week to week.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a story. Can you think of a specific story of a child or a teen where there was a situation where they felt a certain way, then you introduced a yoga mindfulness activity, and then there was a transformation, or some story that left you feeling like this work really works?
Yeah. If you could give me a moment, I'll pull up our book here. There's a little story in there. I'll go ahead and read an excerpt from there, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So it goes like this. Once, as a school counselor, I was working with a 9-year-old girl who was referred to me for aggressive behaviors. During our counseling sessions, I taught her how to take calming breaths and then to go through experiencing her five senses, as you mentioned earlier, right?
Mm.
One day when I entered her classroom, actually looking for another student, she was advancing on a boy with her fists clenched and raised up. The moment she saw me, her face turned red, she paused, and I could visibly see her take a few breaths that looked more like angry huffs than calming breaths. But that slight pause seemed to be enough. She then slowly approached the boy and led him through finding things to see, hear, smell, touch, and taste in the classroom. Watching this beautiful little slice of joy reminded me that mindfulness is timeless and applicable to all people and all situations.
I love that. And I just want to highlight this idea too. We're obsessed about this idea of taking a pause, and it's so important for adults, for children, for everybody, right? Like imagine the difference. Like, you think about meditation or mindfulness, you think about taking time, right? So people think of meditation, you have to sit cross-legged on top of a mountain or whatever, right? But taking a pause, that's something we can all do. It takes 1 second. Like imagine the difference in conversations between us and our little ones, between us and each other, right? Between leaders in our communities, in the world, imagine the difference if we could just take a pause before we speak online to each other on social media, before you get on the phone, before you text someone. I mean, to that level, do you know what I mean? Like you said, taking a pause. And here's a 9-year-old taking a pause with her anger. I mean, I just think that's extraordinary. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a kind of a neat mindfulness thing that I just kind of stumbled upon in my email, that there's an option there that it gives you 30 seconds to cancel a send, or if you set the settings like that.
Right.
And so I do that now. And then rather than jumping into something else in the next email or doing something else, I take those 30 seconds to pause. It also gets my eyes away from the screen. I look out the window of the mountains here where I live, and I kind of relax for 30 seconds. Every time I send off an email, there's a temptation for me to jump ahead right into the next thing. And sometimes I'm impatient with those 30 seconds and say, I need to get the next thing done.
Yeah.
But just having that little amount built into my day like that seems to be quite nice.
I love that. I love that. All right, beautiful. So I'd love to hear some of our interviews. We talk about what's your favorite book. I'd love to hear any book that you are reading. We're bookies over here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, actually, on my desk right now, I'm reading this book
Oh,
sometimes between work. It's called The Removed by
okay.
Brandon Hobson. It's a very, very interesting book. I'm just barely getting started with it, but about people from my tribe, the Aniyawe tribe, that kind of personal stories about family, about mental health, about grieving, about the day-to-day struggles types of things. So I'm kind of enjoying that sometimes when I take a little break from work here.
I love it. Beautiful. I love it. I'll check it out for sure. And now how can we find you? So you were talking about your book. Just want to share with everyone. So Teaching Mindfulness is Dr. Amoneeta's new book with Johnny York. So where can we find you online?
Yeah, thanks for that. Well, if, first you could look at amoneeta.com. I'm working on my website, but that for now will lead you to my LinkedIn. So feel free to jump on there and reach out. You can also follow on Instagram if you wanted, dr.amoneeta on Instagram, and then probably the most effective, you already heard me talking about being on email every day, would be direct to reach out to amoneeta@fortlewis.edu. Will be one of the great ways to contact me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom and experience with us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. It's been a real honor to be on your show here, and thank you also for what you're doing. It takes a village to promote these concepts here and normalize it into our society so we can all benefit in the long run.
Love it. Thank you so much.